My name is Nilima, and I'm going to talk about the framework I created for web scraping as my final project for advanced Python for data science class. So let's just get started with that. So, what is this framework about? This framework is an attempt at creating a project which can be used to write scripts to scrape websites easily by non programmers. And to make it easier for non programmers, most of the code can be written using in plain English using something called feature files. This feature files is a feature that comes from Cucumber framework, and this lets people, non-programmers, easily write script-like code in English. And the Cucumber framework uses something called step definition to convert these English phrases to code and use that to direct the flow of the application. And this is usually used as a testing framework, but here I'm using that same framework to scrape websites. So why did I try to create this framework? At my workplace, I frequently get requests from people who are not technical to create simple scripts to scrape websites to download data from the internet. So this framework provides them a way to work with scripts at in a language that they understand, and it removes the middleman, that is me. So what is needed for this project? So it would one of the first things is it would need a browser, and I have written this framework for specifically for Chrome. So any machine this running this program should have a Chrome web browser. You would need to put the Chrome WebDriver, which from Selenium, in your path. I am shipping that Chrome WebDriver under the bin directory as part of my project. And you would, of course, need to install pipenv in the Python interpreter so that we could use the pipenv's uh, features and package our entire project for deployment at the same time. So, getting started. How do you get started with this framework? So you would create a new project using the cookie cutter, and the settings that you would require for this cookie cutter template. I've taken a screenshot. So as you can see, most of it is just out of the box uh, of where the repo would be, what is the name of the repo repository. And the two interesting features are the feature file that you see here. What this is the default feature file that will be created by the program for you, and which will have some basic um, script already written, which can serve as a pointer about how to navigate a website using the feature file framework. And the second thing that you should note here is the input data file. So in most of the cases, when you have a script and you want to scrape something from a website, you would have a list of inputs and you would want to repeat the same action again and again. So this input data file, what you are sending is what you're giving to the program is where the file of your inputs is stored, and as part of the cookie cutter template generation, I will take that from your input data file and put it right there in the feature file. So it kind of automates that step also, and so that it is more easier for you to work with this framework. So once the cookie cutter generation runs, it generates a project with the following directory structure. So as I mentioned, the bin directory is um, where the Chrome driver is present. The data directory, this is an empty directory that I have supplied. This is just so that if your application has any output, you can just mention the path here, and this is where the output data would be generated. The features directory, so this is where most of the work by a non-programmer would be done. This is where the feature file will get generated, and under the source are the source directories where we have written the where I have written the step definitions. So what are step definitions is basically, um, so as I said, Cucumber has some underlying framework which takes plain English and converts it into program. So for every phrase that is written in the feature file, you have to have um, a appropriate step definition, and this I will which I will show you later during this presentation. And this is where plain language gets converted into code, and the pip file and the pip file.log are needed so that all the dependencies which are needed for this project are installed. Um, so we already talked about these, but these are the two features, two settings from the cookie cutter which are specific to this project. So one is the feature file, and as I mentioned, if you do not give a name, the program will create something called sample.feature by default, and in the input data file. So this is the CSV file which can be used, which is used to provide the input data. If you do not have a input data file, that is fine too. The application will take care, and then it will make sure that the there is it will not throw an error if you do not provide one to the test bed. So now that we have talked so much about feature files, what are the feature files? So this is not something that I have built. This is something that Cucumber gives out of the box. So a feature file would something, this is an example of a feature file. So you can say that given that go to this website, the user will find elements with the ID lookup. So what this means is the application will go to that will open a web browser and go to this specific link, and after going to that link it would try to find an element with a ID lookup. And then what it would do is here the user enters the phrase in the element, so whatever. And as you can see, you can see a list of phrases down here. So for every one of the phrases that have been listed down here, it will loop through the same program again and again. It will enter that. So in this specific case, it's going to a website called Market Watch. It's entering the different symbols of securities, and once it enters and enters the symbol in the security list, it would find the price element from the website and just save both of them into a file called data output.csv. So this kind of automates the entire. So in case you have a list of symbols that you want to get a price from a specific website, just writing this in simple English would give you generate a .csv file which will have all these inputs in there. So as you can see, all the things which have been highlighted in blue are actually variables. So the same format and same framework can be used to go to any website and look up uh, different kinds of elements with different IDs. You can look up elements with name, you can look up attributes, and save them into variables that you can create on the fly, and these are then all downloaded into this data.output.csv file. So let's do a little simple code walkthrough of what is happening in this project. So let me give you a small walkthrough of how this framework works. So first thing you would do is create the new project using cookie cutter, and as you can see, it would ask you this some default settings, and I'm just going to name this as a test repo. um, I'm just going to accept the feature file to be the default one, which is sample. And so the input data file, as we discussed, this is if you need to embed any data, and I want to show you how to embed that data, so I'm going to provide it a file. So as you can see, now there is a new project created called test repo, which has all the files. And and this is the sample feature file that it created for us. So the interesting part about this is the cookie cutter, the sample feature file that was present does not have the input data. It just has a token for the input data. And what I have used is within Cookie Cutter, there is something called generation project script. What it does is once the Cookie Cutter has generated the template, you can go and still manipulate the template data. So within this script, I am actually opening whatever input data file was specified during the creation and replacing the token with with the contents from the input data file. So that kind of gives us this feature file. So as I've explained in my presentation, as well as this is how you can write something in just normal English, and the code knows how to read it. So how does that part of it work? So if you look under the source, you will find some conf.test conf.test.py directory. So as you can see, there are annotations that have been given, which actually take whatever you have written in English, as for example, given annotation with go to home page, and that is what is getting converted from here, and it knows that home page is a variable within this directory, and it uses that to uh, get the browser to manipulate the elements. So if you want to see how this works, for example, um, so this is our feature file, and this is our test default py. So this just lists the different feature files that we wanted to run. In this case, I just want it to run one sample feature file that just got created right now. And so to run this project, one of the first things we'll have to do is we'll have to set the path to include the Chrome driver that we have, which is right under the bin. And then I would run pytest. This would, you will see that it is opening its own browser and navigating to the page. And now you would see it entering whatever variable we had given right here. As you see, it entered the Microsoft symbol and grabbed the price for Microsoft. And it would, in a loop, go through every variable that has been mentioned and do this. I'm just going to cut it short so that I can show you the result. Um, now if you see in my sample script, it mentions that the prices should be written under in data.output.csv. So if you go here, you would find that, and as you can see, it got the Microsoft's price, and the price is 155.53, and that's exactly what we expected it to do.